Volkswagen, the titan of the automotive industry, is in trouble. They've led the charge in the electric vehicle race, or so we thought. Now it seems the German giant is facing a serious speed bump. EV sales are plummeting and Volkswagen's future as we know it is hanging in the balance. In this video, we will dive deep into the numbers, the reasons, and the potential fallout. Volkswagen saw a big drop in electric vehicle sales in Europe during the first few months of the year, with numbers falling by almost a quarter. People were switching back to petrol cars. On the 10th of April, Volkswagen shared its financial update, showing that their all-electric vehicle sales in Europe decreased by 24% compared to last year. Moreover, Volkswagen's electric vehicle (EV) sales worldwide dropped by exactly 4,400 units. While this isn't a huge fall, it does mean they sold fewer EVs than last year. Interestingly, this happened even though global EV sales actually went up by 20% this year. So, Volkswagen is losing market share, especially in China, where their sales dropped by 19.6%, almost 20%. Some might think that the decline in China doesn't matter much, but historically, Volkswagen makes 50% of its profits and 40% of its sales there. If their situation in China mirrors what happened to Jeep and Mitsubishi, Volkswagen could lose half its profits and 40% of its sales. While this isn't happening yet, it's a direction they're heading toward, and if it continues, Volkswagen might struggle to pay back its $190 billion debt, which would be a significant issue. Sam Evans from the Electric Viking channel anticipates reactions from Volkswagen enthusiasts who might dismiss these concerns as nonsense. He compares the situation to what happened with BlackBerry and Kodak, brands that once dominated but eventually crumbled despite their loyal fan bases. So why are Europeans shifting back to petrol cars? Well, in February, the European Parliament passed a new law that will ban the sale of petrol and diesel cars starting in 2035. This law is part of a broader effort to tackle climate change in the EU and is meant to accelerate the move towards electric vehicles. However, despite these plans, European electric vehicle sales dropped in the first quarter of 2024. The sector still faces some hurdles, like the high cost of electric cars and a lack of charging infrastructure, which the World Economic Forum pointed out in a recent report. These challenges are pushing people back towards petrol cars for now. A recent report from Ernst & Young shows that regulations, subsidies, and incentives have really helped boost the adoption of electric vehicles. However, despite these financial perks, the high cost is still a big hurdle. Electric vehicles cost over 25% more than traditional petrol cars. Though owning an EV is cheaper in the long run, many people aren't aware of this, according to EY. The World Economic Forum also mentioned that the slow rollout of charging infrastructure is a problem. Ernst & Young predicts that the adoption will stall without a solid network of fast chargers for those who can't charge at home or need quick top-ups on longer journeys. It means we need to cut through red tape, get faster approvals from local authorities, and ensure better grid connections from utility companies. Speaking at the Financial Times Future of the Car Summit in London, Thomas Schaefer admitted, "We're seeing a plateau as countries remove some incentives and subsidies." Still, he emphasized that it wasn't the end of the world. Both Tesla and the Chinese Warren Buffett-backed upstart BYD had reported a significant fall in sales in recent months, signaling that the industry was struggling. In the UK, the Office for Budget and Responsibility (OBR) halved its forward-looking forecast for EV sales in 2027. Experts believe that most early adopters of electric models had already bought their cars, meaning automakers face the tough task of convincing less climate-friendly, skeptical buyers. Ongoing issues surrounding charging infrastructure and a tough macroeconomic backdrop likely dissuaded users from switching to electric vehicles. "We made our plans, and now the governments and society need to come along. We can't do it by ourselves," Schaefer told the conference. High EV prices began to decrease, influenced by a price war between rapidly growing Chinese brands and mainstay automakers. However, that price war posed a significant problem for the world's biggest manufacturers. Schaefer argued that it was mainly happening on the plug-in side, with most of the areas Volkswagen operated in being less impacted. Schaefer commented on the situation, "The development in China is fast. The market has always been tough. The shift toward new energy vehicles, NEVs, including electric batteries and plug-in hybrids, happened faster than anyone expected." Schaefer acknowledged, "The move that's happening at the moment into NEV, battery electric, and plug-in hybrids is happening faster than anybody would have expected, but you've got to go with the flow and compete. We have great value shoulders." When asked whether Volkswagen would still sell cars in the region in 25 years' time, Schaefer responded confidently, "Absolutely. In every country in the world, it will be a local hero that will take the majority. It is now happening in China, but we will still be the biggest non-Chinese player." So here, we can say that the Chinese car market is quite different from those in the US and Europe. In the latter, car sales are relatively steady throughout the year. However, there's been a significant spike in sales in China during the last 6 months. Typically, the year's first half accounts for only about 30 to 35% of the total annual sales. This means that 65 to 70% of all car sales in China happen in the final 6 months of the year. This pattern has important implications for car manufacturers like Volkswagen. If sales are weak in the first half, they must rely heavily on a strong performance in the latter half to compensate for it. Given the current trends, Volkswagen's overall global sales might continue to decline. Volkswagen delivered 317,000 electric vehicles, EVs, worldwide in the first half of this year. That's 4,400 fewer than the same period in 2023. This drop is significant because the Chinese market, which is critical for Volkswagen, is rapidly shifting towards EVs. In the last few months, about 49% of all cars sold in China were EVs or plug-in hybrids. Many experts believe this figure could reach 60% by the end of this year and possibly 75% next year. If this happens, Volkswagen might lose even more sales and market share in China. This is particularly concerning for its long-term future. The company has $200 billion in debt, and around 90% of its factories are still producing internal combustion engine (ICE) cars. Given the global shift towards EVs, this reliance on ICE cars is unsustainable. Volkswagen must be aware of these trends. The data is precise. If they don't adapt rapidly, they risk falling further behind in the rapidly changing automotive industry. The decline in EV sales during the first half of the year is a big problem, especially since the Chinese market is crucial for their overall performance. With half of all cars sold in China now being EVs or plug-in hybrids, Volkswagen needs to ramp up its EV production and sales to stay competitive. The Chinese market's rapid transition to electric mobility means that companies that fail to keep up will lose out. It is particularly true for Volkswagen given its heavy reliance on the Chinese market for profits and sales. Looking ahead, the next 10 years will be critical for Volkswagen. They need to figure out how to manage their debt while transitioning more of their production capacity to EVs. The automotive industry is moving towards electric vehicles, and companies that don't adapt quickly risk being left behind. Volkswagen's situation is a bit like a ticking clock. They have a massive debt burden and a production infrastructure heavily skewed towards ICE cars, which are becoming less relevant. To navigate this, Volkswagen needs to significantly boost its EV production and sales, particularly in China, where the market is snowballing. The Chinese market's unique sales pattern, with a significant surge in the second half of the year, gives Volkswagen a chance to recover. However, this recovery is not guaranteed. They need to not only increase their EV sales, but also compete effectively with local Chinese brands that are gaining popularity. Many Chinese consumers now opt for local EV brands like NIO, Xiaomi, and Zeekr, which offer competitive alternatives to Volkswagen's models. This shift is understandable, as these local brands are often more attuned to the preferences and needs of Chinese buyers. Volkswagen's strategy must involve more than just increasing production. They must innovate and ensure their EVs are attractive to the Chinese market. It might include investing in new technologies, improving their vehicles' performance, and making them more affordable. Volkswagen's next few years will be a big test. To stabilize its global performance, Volkswagen needs to ramp up its EV sales and regain market share in China. Otherwise, it risks falling behind in an industry that's quickly shifting towards electric mobility. Volkswagen knows what's at stake. Their future success hinges on how well they can pivot to meet the growing demand for EVs, especially in China. It's a crucial time for the company, and what they do now will shape their place in the future of the automotive world. What do you think about Volkswagen's situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more such interesting videos. See you in the next video.